A violent attack in Northern Ireland has brought a major element in the immigration and asylum debate into sharp focus. But nobody seems interested in doing the right thing. Stephen Ogilvie, aged in his 40s, is in hospital at the time of recording, having lost his left eye and suffered damage to his right eye in a knife attack in North Belfast on Monday evening, June the 8th, 2026. He also has injuries to his neck and back. The attack prompted riots in Belfast on Tuesday, June the 9th. And on Wednesday, June 10th, Hadi Al-Odid, 30, was charged with attempted murder, possession of a knife in a public place, and threats to kill an NHS worker. He has been remanded in custody. He is of Sudanese origin and entered the UK in 2023 when he was given refugee status. Bearing in mind that this man has only been accused, not convicted, it is still reasonable to say that the attack raises questions about what to do when people who have been granted asylum in the UK commit serious crimes. Most people would probably accept several principles at the same time. Firstly, genuine refugees should be protected. Second, people who commit serious crimes should face punishment. Thirdly, foreign nationals who commit serious crimes should be normally removed from the country if it is lawful and safe to do so. Finally, the asylum system should try to identify dangerous individuals before admission, not after. That last point is much easier to state than achieve. As Ben Brindle, the researcher from the University of Oxford's Migration Observatory, points out, predicting future criminality is extraordinarily difficult unless someone already has a violent criminal record. Many serious offenders, whether claiming asylum or not, had no previous convictions before the crime that made them notorious. If we cannot reliably identify future violent criminals among our own citizens, how are we supposed to identify them among refugees? Jonathan Hall, the government's independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, has suggested that national security agencies would be well advised to start by asking these questions. Are asylum seekers recent arrivals from conflict zones? Have they been exposed to extreme violence? Do they have connections to hostile or violent states? And have they participated in armed groups or militias? These are legitimate security questions, similar to how intelligence agencies currently assess risks from returning foreign fighters. They avoid blurring the distinction between some migrants may present security risks to migrants as a group are a security threat. At all times, we must remember that those assertions are not the same. And we must also avoid dangerous statistics. The BBC has stated that foreign nationals constitute around 13% of people currently living in the UK and are also responsible for around 13% of criminal convictions. But that doesn't mean 13% of people from every country that has sent people to the UK have committed crimes. Some nationalities will be represented more than others. And then somebody has to disentangle nationality from age, sex, poverty, trauma, language barriers, and other factors. So the policy challenge is how to minimize risk while still offering asylum to genuine refugees. That could mean better background checks where possible, faster decisions so people are not left in limbo for years, better monitoring of people identified as high risk, swift deportation after serious criminal convictions where international law allows, and more investment in integration, language learning, and employment. None of those would eliminate risk entirely. The uncomfortable reality is that every asylum system involves accepting some uncertainty about people whose past cannot always be fully verified. What should be even more uncomfortable for the Conservative Party is that its governments from 2010 onwards effectively dismantled the mechanisms that would have handled the questions I've just raised. And now their Chris Philp is ranting about leaving the European Convention on Human Rights in order to deport more people, which will worsen the problem and do nothing to address what actually needs to be done. The UK once had a much larger civil service capacity in immigration, local government, policing, probation, youth services, mental health provision and community relations. But successive Tory-led and Tory governments stripped resources out of many of those areas, so the state is now expected to do more with less while dealing with much larger and more complex caseloads. And the current government has shown no interest in reversing this decline. Take monitoring. Who actually monitors a refugee who has been identified as potentially high risk? The obvious candidates are the police, MI5, the probation services, local authorities and social services. But none of those organisations has the capacity to do it. MI5 cannot follow everybody who might be dangerous. Even before the cuts, it prioritised according to threat level because resources are finite. Police forces are stretched. Probation has been in crisis for years. Councils are struggling to fund statutory services. And asylum isn't just a border issue, it's also a local government issue. Suppose a town suddenly receives several hundred asylum seekers. The practical question is not only whether they should be there, but whether there are enough teachers, GPs, translators, social workers, housing officers and police officers to absorb that change successfully. If the answer is no, as it is now, tensions are going to rise regardless of anybody's views on immigration itself. The Belfast disorder illustrates this. One victim has been harmed, allegedly by one offender, but the repercussions have spread far beyond the original crime, affecting whole communities, including many people who had absolutely nothing to do with it. Viewed that way, the problem is now how to maintain social cohesion when a small number of incidents can trigger large-scale public reactions. That is a much harder question, because it forces governments to think about state capacity, local services, community relations and information flows, not just immigration numbers. And these are precisely the areas that have been weakened over the last 16 years. If any government wanted a genuinely effective response, it would involve rebuilding institutions and local support structures. But politicians, as always, find it far easier to promise tougher rules than it is to spend money on the less visible work that makes those rules effective. No government can deliver absolute safety in its asylum system. The political question is how much risk a society is willing to accept in order to fulfill its humanitarian obligations. Sadly, the Tories took that decision away from us when they hacked services to ribbons in the name of austerity savings that never happened.